Welcome everybody to Beetle. We saw the Beetle. It was surprisingly pretty good. What did you think, Cameron?
Yeah, I thought Blues Brothers,
The Beetle.
DC version of Blues Brothers was very confusing. I have
Blues Brothers mixed with the Beatles.
Yeah, no idea what these have to do with either band.
So we once saw Blues Brothers. Fuck me. It's not.
I got him.
I'm so tired. God.
I just destroyed the microphone.
Yeah, we saw Blue Beetle. I got 32-bit float audio. We'll fix it in post. We went and saw Blue Beetle. It was pretty good. I thought it was really funny how no one saw this movie
Apparently
for the first 2 weeks it was out, and then Keon put it on the screen. We couldn't find a single theater that had a showing. This was Sunday night. We were like, well, let's find a showing on Sunday night.
Surely no one watches movies on Sunday.
Yeah, it was only in IMAX. It wasn't in Dolby. It was in IMAX and in a couple of tiny theaters.
Yeah.
Presumably because IMAX had rented those
theaters,
out.
some might say.
And completely sold out.
Yeah.
I was beguiled by it. And after watching the movie, I think that it was fair.
Yeah, I think this is definitely one of those movies that if this was like... This is kind of like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man. Like, when it came out, we were like, whoa, this is an incredible... We've never seen a superhero movie like this before, ever.
Yeah.
And then we've seen all of the superhero movies since then, probably because of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man. I'm a big DC fan. I've watched a lot of Young Justice League, whatever. I'm aware of the comics and have my own opinions about the different whatevers because I'm a big nerd.
You'll need to fill me in on plenty.
Yeah, Keon, put nerd glasses on me. Thank you. So
don't do that. You're tired.
You get to ask yourself in the edit bay what to do, but
I know how tired I am, so I can load up my own workload. I'm trying to be the best boss I can be for myself.
You know, that's important. Everyone's okay at being someone else's boss, but you never take time to learn how to be your own boss. And I think that's the real lesson of Blue Beetle, is that someone else's boss is telling you to do minor war crimes to a Latino family in America, and you need to be your own boss and decide that maybe war crimes are bad.
Exactly. You need to just do a little bit of self-care when
you're
committing war crimes,
and not causing people of color and marginalized communities to be openly executed in their front yards.
Yes.
This is sad. Like, I can't even really make this joke anymore.
You just jumped right into the deepest part of the movie.
That's the entire point of the movie. That's what makes this movie feel special compared to so many other movies. I'm just going to start by saying, if you want to know why I feel like this movie is kind of special in its own way, I'll say this. I've never seen a movie that was like so anti-cop before. That was like, on its face, George Lopez is straight up, do not call the cops.
God, George. And I think that's in the trailers. Like, a lot of his like zany sayings are in the trailers as like a goof. And then in the movie, they're played like very straight. Yeah. Where it's like, hey, don't call the cops. They're owned by a big government or a big company. And then everybody's like, yes, you are correct. It's not like a conspiracy theory. They're like, nope, that's probably very true.
And then also it's like weird because it's like also that Sam Raimi like humor mixed with horror. Like in the Spider-Man movies, you see like Green Goblin throws the like pumpkin grenade and like people turn to ash.
Yeah.
And if you're a little kid in the audience watching people turn to ash or watching Doc Ock's arms horrifically drag someone into the darkness.
That was I recently thought about that.
But at the same time, the Blue Beetle transformation sequence is body horror. It's like you're seeing this like imagine like you have your son and you've like goaded him into this bit.
Yeah.
And not knowing that this thing that you were goading him into is going to slowly physically fuse with his body, and you're going to watch it like systemically take over every part of him and replace it with this like Iron Man looking power armor in just the most beautifully grotesque way possible. Like, it's surprisingly well done. Like, if George Lopez wasn't actively like doing the over the top like sitcom face, it would have been a horror scene, not like a comedy.
And we're definitely in minor spoilers territory. Like, I mean, I'll have put up a graphic before
the Blue Beetle has a Blue Beetle in it, and as the character, and you see him become the Blue Beetle because that's the title of the movie. Big spoiler.
The couple things I wanted to mention beforehand were lead actor, incredibly good. Loved him.
I'd say almost the entire cast of this film is like either completely crushes it or is doing the best they can with what they got.
Sure, I really loved the main actor has been in Cobra Kai, did a bunch of karate, and now does it in a superhero thing. I think he did a great job as being just this adorably like chipper and nice and sweetheart guy, just being beset upon by an alien robot thing.
Yeah. I mean, even I would say the one character who had like the least space to work with and still like manage to bring a lot to it. Susan Sarandon's character, like she is the prototypical villain.
Yeah.
And yet she found a way to have like, it's like when you finally get to play the villain you always loved growing up.
Yeah.
She is just, you can kind of tell she's having a certain amount of fun with it.
It's pretty fun watching her just be unapologetically terrible.
Yeah.
And not even in a way where I'm glad they didn't do that thing where like they wink at the camera of like, oh, I'm a terrible person. No, she's just like, no, you gotta break a few eggs, and I really couldn't care less. Like that's it. It was very fun to watch her do that. As well as, George Lopez, my goodness. Like I was very, because a lot of these movies have that like, this is going to be the funny comic relief guy. But everything he said was not only like funny in a way, but also clever in a way that's like, this all works. He's not just saying, and I'm kind of sick of that in a lot of movies where the quips take you completely out of it. And that was my major problem with Love and Thunder, is that like, I think the overall plot was great. But like so many of the quips, I'm just like, what the fuck? Well, like this one, I felt like they were pretty good. They all blended in and worked.
Yeah, and I'd say like that's not just like every single character in this movie had an opportunity, especially the main cast of like the family, had an opportunity to have like a serious moment, a funny moment, and a heartfelt moment. And all of them, in the unique way their character is set up, land those. Like the way the mom does it, the way the grandma does it, the way the George Lopez does it, the dad does it, the sister. Like they each get their moment to shine, and I think it really sells it.
I agree. And I like the younger sister, was it?
Yeah.
She was fun in a kind of annoying way, but also kind of like a I don't know, just kind of.
I honestly felt very much our dynamic.
Yeah,
in that. It's like,
basically.
the brother who was like, I'm gonna do the thing that's expected of me, and then you're more like,
fuck that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna take your plan for my life and place it directly in the garbage.
Exactly.
I'm gonna do my own thing and have fun doing it.
Perfect. Welcome to my own thing. Thank you for being here. And yeah, the only character, frankly, that I felt like didn't have too much to do or was kind of okay was Jenny Cord. Was that her name? The love interest Ted Cord.
I have many opinions about her, but I was actually more upset with Susan Sarandon's like mini boss henchman. I forgot his name.
Yeah, I guess his character didn't get too much emotive time. Like, what do you mean?
Like, I literally don't even remember his name. What a weird role.
He got a name, yeah.
He has a name.
I know. I don't remotely remember. Yeah.
Like, I even remember Sanchez because the entire bit is that she keeps saying his name is Sanchez and it's not Sanchez.
Yeah. God, what was his name?
I think
they only say it a couple times.
I could Google it. Conrad Carapax.
Conrad Carapax. Wow, Cameron, you brought that up so fast.
I know. It's like I had this innate knowledge that I pulled out my phone and Googled the cast of the movie.
I knew having a DC fanboy like you would pay dividends.
Conrad Carapax, famous DC character. He's actually a reference to New 52's Conrad Carapax, the character.
Yeah, you see his original costume was actually very simple, but now they added a bunch of gribbles and grobbles. And
the Blue Beetle in this movie is actually based on the Blue Beetle from the comics. A lot of people didn't know that. But it's the same character.
I hate you so much.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the characters were done very well. The grandma was a standout. Everybody had a good moment to shine, and it was fun. It was a fun time. I am curious why they decided to make the popcorn bucket look so gross.
That's a body horror. When you buy the here's the thing. Normally, the problem is when you buy popcorn at the movie theater, you have to eat it with your mouth, and sometimes you get the kernel stuck in your tooth. When you buy the backpack, it fuses with your body and shoves the popcorn directly in your stomach, so the kernels don't break your teeth.
I mean,
you also get a laser gun.
I gotta say, as soon as I looked at it, like in the line to get popcorn, I was like, "That looks disgusting. This looks like something out of Alien or H.R. Geiger, anything. Why did they put this here?" And then after seeing the movie, I'm like, "That was weirdly on brand." I feel primed to see this movie after seeing that. Yeah, it's all holistically makes sense.
So you want to get into spoilers?
A spoiler. There you go. This movie was basically an excuse for the prop department to use nothing but 90s and 2000s props, yeah,
that's items. The word you're looking for.
No, but I mean like technology, I guess.
There's literally a scene in there where I'm 100% sure, I don't feel like Googling this because I just know the meme so well. Sure. In The Fifth Element, Gary Oldman's character is like selling this turbo future gun that has like 60 guns together. And the first time the Blue Beetle armor generates a lethal weapon, it is just that gun.
And I think it's from like in the trailers. Like I remember people pointing that out. And there were so many different references that were surprisingly that. They were kind of timeless in the way that they're just old. They are from the 90s and 2000s. I don't remember them even mentioning too many things that were kind of current.
Also, I got to point out something about that gun that always bothered me from Fifth Element. It's the same problem as the laser targeter for the Raptors in the Jurassic World.
Oh, yeah.
It's like in that game, or in that movie, when you shoot the guy, the first bullet that hits him will target him, and all the rest of the bullets will follow them. But you already shot someone.
What are you talking about?
You probably don't need to keep shooting him at that point.
Well, the other bullets are slower, so you need the quick bullet.
Yes,
the quick bullet penetrates
yes.
the shield.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. That's what you did it for me, Ken. I don't even have to do it. Congratulations, everyone. Ken saved me time.
I need to make a graphic that just says Dune or Dune moment comes up.
Dune reference.
It happens every time. Yeah, they had the references to the Fifth Element, but then every single thing, so spoilers, we're in spoilers, Ted Cord, who is the father of Jenny Cord and also kind of the, I guess, like not niece, or not niece, nephew.
Susan Sarandon's character, and I don't remember if it was a sibling or just like a family member. Like basically, they founded Cord Industries.
Yeah, Jenny's grandfather.
And then when Ted Cord's father is the one who founds it with Susan Sarandon. When he dies, the entire industry, because for some reason that guy had complete controlling interest in the company. Passes it to Ted Cord, who is like, I don't know why. I just feel like making missiles that kill people is bad. And I guess I'm Tony Stark now.
God,
so he makes his own Tony Stark cool stuff, and he's like, I'm gonna do fighting crime, but like sassy. And then I think that's like a good thing that they yada past Ted Cord. Like we get tidbits of the original Blue Beetle.
Yeah.
But then we get the new 52 Blue Beetle. That's the one we're getting now, which I think is really good because it makes the universe feel very lived in. It's like there was a dude here. They have references to other cities with other superheroes, but we're not going to dwell on them. It's either you get the reference or you have a semblance of it. Just like it gives you an excuse to be like, there's some mystery here. Who was this guy? What did he actually mean to this community? Because it's very clear that this community is a set of haves and have-nots to like an extreme.
On that note, I think it was probably the best way to play this when you do have two versions of the character, because you have the, like, I don't know, me as a very fair weather fan of DC that's like, I guess I'll read some stuff, I'll watch some of the shows. Seeing the Bug and like seeing some of those other elements was really fun, but he's Iron Man. He doesn't need a spaceship to fly around in. So the fact that they worked it in there was really fun to be like, oh, they still had it, and it played a fun, different little Easter egg versus. Yeah, he can just fly around. He doesn't really need that.
Well, that's the difference. Is like the one thing this does better is that Iron Man is an origin story. In a universe where we have no established heroes, he's like the first hero. But in Blue Beetle, we have so many people running around to the point where he's even taking his name from the last hero. Like it's very clear that I forget the name of the city, but it's basically Miami.
Palmyra, I think it was.
Palmyra, yeah. And it's literally just like if you think of Miami, where it has like this core metropolitan skyscrapers, beach life, rich people living their rich asshole lives place, surrounded by all the people who actually make the city work, who are not as well off as the people who get to live in the super imperialist core of Miami. That's exactly the kind of thing that they're trying to convey with how they created Palmyra.
So you have that in the form of this rich Tony Stark / Batman character who's like, I got a bunch of money, I'm gonna go run around and have some crazy gadgets and fuck around. And for his character, every single one of his gadgets is a fun 90s product. They're going around looking at the weapons, and one of them is the Power Glove.
It is literally the Power Glove.
Yeah,
that
like
he has
very little
modified
change
to
in.
Be a hologram buster.
Yeah, and then another one is while they're running around the like kind of underground of this layer, they're looking at a device that's supposed to be a map, and I'm fairly certain the actual device itself, like it has a screen, an LCD screen, but it looked like a Game Boy with a little worm light that like as soon as I saw it, I'm just like, wow, this is immediately only I would notice.
Yeah.
Like someone that grew up at that time
Yeah.
would be like, I've seen that fucking light before. I know exactly what that is.
But that's also like the beauty of this movie is you can tell the prop department had a lot of, like, you know, when you're a kid and you have like your stupid little, like, it is clearly just like a light, but to you it's like a bazooka.
Yeah, exactly.
It's exactly like the, like when that's supposed to give credence to the kind of person Ted was to have that imagination and have the means to realize it.
And he has this cool little techie watch, which is reminiscent of those like calculator watches a little bit. And my favorite, which happened to be that they set up all of these like bombs around the lair to blow it up and get rid of the bad guys. And then to trigger it, they use an N gauge. Does anybody remember the N gauge?
The first and only gaming phone.
I really can't believe, like looking back, I wanted an N gauge so much. And then after like realizing that an N gauge in theory is genius, but it was a vertical screen.
Yeah.
So like all of the widescreen games that were coming out at the time, and not even like full widescreen, just like 4:3 aspect ratios. This thing had like a 1:1 aspect ratio, so you couldn't even play like Sonic Advance came out for it. It wasn't even remotely playable because you couldn't see the left and the right side of the screen, so you just run into shit. I still want an N gauge though. Give me an N gauge. Thank you, Blue Beetle.
I still love my mini. Was it the Game Boy SP thing?
Oh, the micro?
The like super tiny one that looks like basically the size of a business card is completely impractical, but I played the hell out of some Advance Wars on it.
So yeah, I loved all of the inclusion of all of these like 90s, early 2000 things as elements that he would have just played around with and made like, this is a cool thing. I hacked it so I can use it for my crime fighting, weird, dumb bullshit.
And also like invented new technologies to shove inside it that definitely did not exist in the 90s.
Like... the bubble gum was a bridge too far. I just couldn't.
Okay, are we going to talk about the elephant in the room?
I think it's time.
This is a prequel to Speed Racer, the greatest film ever made or ever will be made. There, I said it. I said what we're all thinking. I said what the lamestream media is too scared to say. This film is the prequel to Speed Racer we never got.
Please elaborate on just the prequel aspect, because I want to talk about Speed Racer itself afterwards in detail.
Okay, so the prequel. In the Speed Racer film, there is a Susan Sarandon.
Yes.
In the Speed Racer film, there is
in all universes there is a Susan Sarandon.
In all universes, she is a universal constant. But that's the thing. She's only one Susan Sarandon who exists simultaneously in all universes.
Okay.
There's also a metropolis city with hologram buildings all over the goddamn place, and like the exact same. I'm not kidding, Keon. If you go back and watch a Speed Racer movie, the private jet helicopter thing they have is like this. The ones you see in this movie are like the proto versions of that one. And then the bubble gum that saves the girl from the crash is the same as the foam bubbles that save all the drivers from the crashes in Speed Racer.
Holy shit.
My headcanon for this film is that Susan Sarandon is a bitter, evil monster who hates family because she had a long-lost daughter that she lost. And she's like, well, I've given up on finding my daughter, so I'm going to find power so I never lose someone ever again. And then she becomes this villain. And then she dies. But then young Susan Sarandon learns about her mom. It's like, oh, my mom was mean to a family of mechanics and did bad things. So I should be a good person and marry a mechanic. And then... Speed Racer.
And his name was Pops.
And
her name was Ma or Mom?
Yeah.
What? I love that. I love their names. Okay, we're going to spend the next 5 minutes talking about Speed Racer. If you haven't seen Speed Racer...
The single greatest film ever made, or ever will be made. I don't know why people don't love this movie.
Nothing is more incredible to me than having not seen the movie yet, but hearing that NPR story about, well, you guys shot all of this in a green screen. It's all green screen. There's no like actual sets. How this is the future of cinema. And then you see the movie and you're just like, they just threw PNGs at the wall and it's the most stylish thing you'd ever seen. But shit ain't like Citizen Kane.
I mean, the funniest thing is there was HDRIs or whatever. The like
the background elements.
Yeah, like it's very clearly, it's not like a volume or something. It's not like a proto volume where it's like the characters feel like they can be immersed and interact with a scene that is just beyond them. No, it's very much like I am a person existing in a strange void, and we're just gonna paint in the space around you.
It's so incredible because it is, in my mind, the proto, like, this is what we've all been building up to in every other movie. Just this movie was so ahead of its time that it caused everyone else to vomit while watching it. They're like, this is stupid, I hate it, but like, it holds up. Like the presentation style holds up so well just because it's its own thing. They're like, okay, well, what happens in anime? Somebody starts talking about something and shit just changes in the background.
No, that's the thing. This is such an homage to like manga that it literally, like, I have never seen another movie do it this well, where you start with a person angrily talking at someone else. The camera is panning around them. During the pan, suddenly into the foreground comes a miniature of the race that he's talking about, and then that zooms into the actual race, and then all of it is like, and as he's narrating, the things are happening, so you're getting the show and the tell, and it is all one seamless interaction. There's no cut to it. There's no cut from it. Like, the cuts happen in a scene, but the cuts never happen between scenes.
If you haven't seen Speed Racer, please do yourself a favor, find it on a streaming service, and enjoy an evening of just bliss. Like, it is. It's one of those things where, like, people enjoy it, and I do to an extent, similarly to, like, Twilight, where Twilight's very watchable in a kind of, like, this is ridiculous, I can't believe they made this. But Speed Racer is this is ridiculous, and I'm fucking into it.
It has so much heart.
Yes.
That's the thing, is the Wachowskis just... Like, that's the other weird thing. It's like
so
the Wachowskis.
Yeah.
Like, it's like this is like, you
like
can also
coming
see,
off of the Matrix and making this.
They had like touches of technologies that worked before for them, and new technologies that they currently didn't figure out just yet. I mean, honestly, if you want a million reasons why you should watch it, go, link to my video that I did forever
Cameron
ago.
made a great video essay style video about how if you're jonesing for Fast and the Furious, what are you doing?
This is where, I mean, this is the saddest part, is this movie predicted where the Fast and Furious franchise is now. You cannot, you cannot tell me, you cannot draw a line directly from this movie to Fast, like, 4.
I'm only going to be satisfied. With the end of Fast X, 11, whatever it's going to be, if we see the birth of Speed Racer. Like, if the very last shot, because, like, and we didn't do an episode on it, but, like, Fast X, us coming out of it, I was like, this is the most obnoxious thing I've ever seen. It's the closest we've gotten to a cartoon, and it is one step below Speed Racer.
No, I'm just going to spoil this for you. I already know what's going to happen, because you're going to see John Cena died in Speed 10. I'll remind you that Pops was a member of the Super Wrestling Federation. So
I forgot.
John Cena is going to come back at the end of, like, Fast 10-2 or whatever.
So you're telling me
Final Fantasy name.
You're telling me that Vin Diesel is Speed Racer's uncle?
Yes, I'm telling you that he's going to come back and they're like, thanks for saving me, whatever his name is, because I refuse to learn the character's name. I was like, don't mention it and call me by my real name, Pops.
Oh my god, I love it. I fucking love it.
My brain will explode out the back of my head.
To which I love, and spoilers for Fast X slightly, just because it's been out for a while. But yeah, Cameron in his video calls out the ending to Fast X.
I made every single joke.
I can't believe it. Literally, we were sitting in the theater, and I'm like, that's silly. And then I think on our way to the car, we're like, wait, you said that. You said that a year ago.
I called it like Gal Gadot forever ago. I was like, no one dies.
No, they just come back.
Paul Walker died, and he's still not dead.
Jesus. So getting back to Blue Beetle.
No, I want to talk about
fuck this. It's not a Speed Racer
That's the problem. A movie that came out in 2008 is killing it over a movie that came out 15 years later.
Once Inspector just...
Inspector Detective suspected foul play.
You knew Speed Racer had to get involved. Jesus Christ.
So good.
It's fucking good.
Okay, but headcanon aside.
Yeah.
Ironically, I think that is like... That is someone has to have seen Speed Racer and thought that and how they showed all the stuff.
It's just as campy, this movie.
Well,
with a bit more like dour darkness, but still like campy as fuck.
But that's the thing though, is like the difference between light and dark. Like the Speed Racer's family home is just a small like 3-2, 4-3 kind of house, and those are considered to be like the nice places. Very similar to the Reyes family is just like in a small home, and they are happy and in love. And all the other rich, soulless people live in big skyscrapers, just like the guy who runs was Royalton Industries. Yeah, and they're like, even though it's a big shiny building, it is a soulless place. God. And I'm telling you, the visual language of that film, a Blue Beetle, is exactly the same as Speed Racer. I can't unsee it.
The only difference is that the annoying younger brother is George Lopez in this movie.
Yes.
And he's way better. God, that monkey's... The monkey and the kid are the only part of Speed Racer that's aged poorly.
Here's the problem.
And it aged poorly at the time too.
Yeah,
It
but
wasn't
like,
good.
but that's the other thing is like they're like we were making a Speed Racer film. Speed is inextricably linked to his brother,
The
his
albatross
older brother,
around his neck.
Yeah. Racer X, his older brother.
Yeah.
And his younger brother, who for reasons unknown has a monkey.
God.
Honestly, the monkey sells so much of that movie too.
He kind of does.
It's like there's like it's ironic. There are literal scenes where if the monkey wasn't there, I don't think the plot would progress.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
There are parts of the movie that cannot exist without the. You can't delete him
He's
from
the
the
Jar
movie.
Jar Binks of Speed Racer.
Seriously, yeah. It's a vital part of the story, and it's infuriating.
Yeah, my favorite part is when they see him using the spear hook. And he said, "You send Big Doo Doo this time."
McClunky.
Yep, some jokes are just for us.
They're just first.
Okay.
So Blue Beetle,
yeah.
finally getting back to it. Yeah, so we start off the movie where the entirety of this family's livelihood is being stripped from them because rich people want to be rich and keep being rich and gentrifying an area. And we just find that the person that wants to do it is just cuz. They're just doing it because they want to be a dickhead. Like there's very little for them to gain by tearing down that like paving it and putting up a parking lot.
Yeah,
like,
but here's the subtext of all that.
Yeah.
First of all, it's very clear that what's the guy's name?
Blue Beetle?
The Blue Beetle's actual name.
Jaime.
Jaime.
Yeah, Jaime
How
Reyes,
did I forget
yeah.
Jaime? Okay. Jaime and his sister are, I'm pretty sure, the only people in that family born in the United States.
Yeah.
Like they're the only people of citizenship. It's implied the father, the grandmother, probably the mother, and the brother all came here potentially illegally because they mentioned ICE multiple times.
Yeah.
It's not just that they're like raised the rent. They could have never bought that house because they're not American citizens. They would never have found a way with their status and their inability to like build and maintain material capital because of their status to buy that house. And it's further like if you're really paying attention, you're seeing how like every problem is exacerbated, not just because corporation bad, but because like the system is literally stacked against them. And now they keep talking about how like, the world just keeps kicking us and we just keep moving along.
Yeah, and it had a very Spider-Man, like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man like spirit about it, where the entire thing is them starting off as like, oh cool, he got his degree, that's great. And so he has a bright future ahead of him, except for all this debt, except for all this money, except for the real world, like knocking down his door. And it felt like Spider-Man 2, where he's just trying to like live in New York and pay rent, and the last $20 he has is like stolen, like taken from his hand. And this movie had a lot of that energy. I wouldn't say it also had that problem that a lot of these movies have, where it's like, okay, that's a big struggle to get over, and instead of living with that struggle, the plot has to pay it off by a benevolent billionaire, of course.
Yes, I was gonna hope we would save this for later, but like when we get to that part of the movie, when we get to the end of the movie, I'm gonna dig into how much I hate the like trope of the nice billionaire overcomes the mean billionaire.
Yeah, which is frustrating. And this movie had a lot of interesting stuff that it like sets up, and the payoff isn't like bad. It's just like, okay, this is fine. And I would give this movie like it's far more competent than the majority of DC films, and in a way that is, it felt like a Sam Raimi Spider-Man. It felt like, okay, this is a quintessential superhero movie. And the thing that surprised me is those elements you were mentioning about the New 52 versus the original. Could you explain New 52 to me and the audience just so we all understand?
Every modern incarnation of most of the superheroes you see is part of the New 52 canon. I guess you could think of it as like somewhere between a reboot and a like completely new universe to help modernize a lot of the characters.
The only thing I remember about New 52 is everyone was very mad about it.
Yes.
Because basically in one fell swoop, they went from, well, here's the legacy of all of these characters. Here's where they came from. Here's what they're about. Here's their whole thing. And then jumping in and being like, okay, clean slate, doesn't matter anymore. We'll keep the stuff we want to keep, but we'll change a lot of it. And Blue Beetle, I feel, originally was, that Batman-esque character and had a bunch of cool gadgets and was super fun. And then this one's like, no. Alien, crazy stuff. We'll add a bunch of body horror kind of crazy shit. I was gonna say,
if you actually like in Watchmen, like Owl,
Night Owl,
or whatever, a lot of his stuff feels very Blue Beetle.
Exactly.
Is where they can, yeah. And I'd say to your point, I think a big thing that New 52 was able to do is it didn't just reboot the characters like appearance, it rebooted who each character was.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the OG comics, the vast majority of superheroes were just some white guy. And so being able to update it to say you have a bunch more superheroes who are of varying ages and varying backgrounds and also varying genders gave a lot more space to tell new stories that could be interesting. And the nice thing is a lot of New 52 stuff winds up building on what came before and saying, like, in the Blue Beetle example, Ted Kord has the Scarab, learns about the Scarab, learns the Scarab technology, and then Jaime is one of the few people ever chosen to actually interact with the Scarab. And then the Scarab itself is its own, like, in the comics, if I recall, it becomes its own plot point, because technically it's an alien dominating machine. Like, it comes to a planet, finds a host, and then uses that host to take over and enslave a planet so that the people who created the Scarabs can come and colonize it. And so, like, I'm imagining they'll probably, like, I want to be proud of myself and call it just like how we were sitting in the Snyder cut of the Justice League. I just turned to you like, at some point someone's gonna have to say anti-life equation, and I sort of got like the next scene they say it. I was like, we did it. I felt like I fell off the couch.
Nothing is better than such an over serious movie saying dumb shit like that. I fucking love it.
That's like the exact same thing here. It's like Jaime is a really cool character, and it's implied that like something short circuits in the Blue Beetle when it crash lands to Earth that allows it to basically not have this like hyper violent drive be the primary thing it does when it selects a host. But at the same time, like, I'm glad they didn't bring up any of that stuff. They just have that was the thing is I've heard people say like they didn't like how this was basically Iron Man. Like, she's like the Friday or the Jarvis inside the armor, and it's just like super nanotech armor that gets to do fancy stuff.
It really, really felt like Spider-Man Homecoming or No Way Home or the other
it's like the Iron Spider armor stuff.
Yeah, where like it starts talking to her, and I think it was Friday or whatever. They have that entire exchange where he's like locked in a place, and they're just like talking to each other, and then he has like the kill mode or whatever. It felt exactly that kind of scene, and that was the only part that I'm just like, oh, we've seen this before, and it's not great. And in particular, there was one moment where I'm like, we don't need to do this. Please pick a different thing to say. Which is when the suit is going through its calibration test thing. He gets the Scarab, it body horrors its way into his back, and then he starts like blasting around town, and he says, you got the wrong guy, I'm just some whatever. I'm like, bro, that's not the point. You know, that's not why it dug its way into your back, not knowing who you were. It technically does because it picks whoever, but you don't know that. It was the kind of thing where I'm like, this was plucked from any other movie. You didn't need to ADR this in here. It could have just been like, this sucks. I hate this. Stop splashing me into water. What the fuck is going on?
Yeah, and that's the other thing, though, is like where I would say this diverges from that trope is like in the other ones, the AI of the suit is created by the creator of the suit. He has no control over the suit. He has no idea what the suit came from. And more importantly, the AI, we don't know if it's malevolent or benevolent or whatever. Which is part of like what makes it interesting, because it's implied that the suit, as it becomes more fused with him over the course of the movie, also takes on personality traits of him, which is why at the beginning of the film, the suit is very hyper-aggressive and borderline homicidal.
That's a good point.
And then by the end of the movie, Jaime, as he's starting to get into this dark place, the suit is actually holding him back because it has learned some, maybe not empathy, but like restraint from Jaime's actions. It's become his suit, and it's no longer just a suit.
I like that. That's a good way of putting it. And similarly, we have right in that moment at the very beginning, he gets the suit, and then they're like, okay, well, we need to go into Cord Industries to get like the key that will unlock the rest of the mysteries of this suit and Blue Beetle. And then he runs into Cooper. What was the other guy's name? Conrad, whatever.
Conrad Carapax.
Yeah, exactly. You knew that.
I knew that
right
immediately
away.
And did not look at my phone.
I'm very proud of you. So Conrad shows up and he's like, fuck, and they fight, and it's the kind of thing that's kind of adorable because he's not wearing a full set of armor. It's a bunch of like pieces of exoskeleton that like come around him a little bit, and then if he gets punched in the arm the wrong way, it's going to explode outwards. So they fight, and they have their little exchange where he just has guns, and I find that very funny that like the entire time he just keeps shooting at him and doesn't have anything except for a big punch, while like, I mean, of course, Jaime's learning the suit, so he's probably not as useful either. But the entire time, they're having this exchange where he gets beaten to shit, Conrad, And then he like he's like, don't kill the guy. And then he gets the leg up. And he's just like, you idiot. You thought you could beat me? It's like, he just beat you, you goofball. What the fuck?
But I think that's the point of that sequence is, first of all, it is supposed to, I think, agitate you as an audience.
Yeah.
Because if I was Jaime, I would have been like, cool, we're going to commit a murder.
Yeah.
I have no problem killing this man. He just spent an unreasonable amount of time trying to kill my uncle. And I like my uncle, so he's going to die now.
Yeah.
So, there's, that's the thing, is, it's not like it's unjustified, but it's also showing you, he is scared and not aware of his power, not aware of who he is as a person. That's kind of the entire point of this movie, is Jaime's finding himself along with finding out who he can be as a hero for his people and as a Blue Beetle.
Yeah.
So that's the entire point, is at the start, in the same way that the bad guy's armor is incomplete, his personality is incomplete.
Ooh.
Yeah. And then by the end of the movie, we see, okay, he has accepted himself as a Blue Beetle, but unfortunately so has the villain finally unlocked his final form of
Conviction
being a
him,
big piece of crap.
Yeah. So getting there, we get the cool watch. We go to the cord layer, the cool house.
We go to the nest, the Blue Beetle nest.
God, it just sounds gross.
Well, it's a beetle.
Awful. And so they go to the house and we unlock Jenny's backstory, and she tells us all about their friendship link goes up and they almost
they have
kiss.
the cutscene.
Exactly.
They have the quick time event. He fails a quick time event, so he can't kiss his girlfriend.
God, Jesus.
I swear to God, that's those were the only things about this movie I hated. Was the cliche, we're about to kiss. George Lopez walks in for no goddamn reason.
Listen, I don't know what the fuck is everybody's deal that she's trauma dumping on him, and it's good. He's being an actually good listener, and then they lean in for a kiss. I'm like, fucking stop. You don't have to do this right now.
It would have been much better if he's like, I am still a very young guy who doesn't understand the world. So I think this is supposed to be an intimate, because that's the other thing is it's implied he's disconnected from his culture in a way. He has the part of his culture they grew up with, and there's the being that's the funny thing is I identify very much with Jaime as someone who has grown up in a country that is not technically his country, even though he's a citizen of it and grown up as part of it and knows all the stuff that. Just the idea that he's pulled all of what he's aware of from media. It's even in how he creates stuff for the Blue Beetle armor. At some point he just produces Cloud's sword from Final Fantasy.
Yeah, another 90s reference.
Yeah, and that's my point though, is there's a lot of this that's just a guy who grew up whenever he grew up, absorbing the pop culture that he did, not really knowing what it takes to be a mature person, not a man or a leader or whatever, just a person, and how that's reflected in his inability to be confident when talking to the girl he likes, or how it would have been much nicer if he leans in for the kiss and she's not right
timing,
now.
dog. Yeah.
maybe when I'm not mourning my father's death.
Yeah, Jesus. And
or your father's death.
Similarly with his version of pop culture, we see that there are the kind of three worlds of pop culture. We see him in kind of the stuff that he knows. But then also, Ted Cord and all of his 90s nostalgia. But then we also get this the C plot or B plot or whatever with the parents and the grandmother who they're all just consuming Hispanic culture stuff in the background.
Yeah, they got the telenovelas. They got their really out there. I mean, that's the thing is you like the Hulk or you like Captain America not too much, but a lot, and that just becomes kind of part of when you do projects, you don't think of I'm just gonna make a thing. I'm gonna make a weird thing that's Hulky or Captain America, and that's really represented in George Lopez's character, where when he creates the super distortion field thing that he uses for breaking into a place. Nothing. Here's the sad part. Nothing about his character as a super hacker uncle bothered me in the slightest.
Yeah.
I was shocked by how much I was willing to accept. He didn't super 3D print and invent a brand new power armor.
He didn't fabricate something in a lab.
He literally has a generator that he has to kick 3 times to get it to start. And once it starts, all it's doing is dumping radio waves out there. So it's not able to do super hacker stuff. It's literally just denial of service attacking the building's Wi-Fi system.
A super powerful pirate radio kind of thing.
Exactly. And so there's probably some stuff that's a bit out there, but for the most part very well executed. I liked his character. I liked how he was the guy in the chair for Jaime, and how he adds an element of someone in my family is with me and always in danger. So you feel that tension is the moment carapax started to shoot at George Lopez while he's in the truck, I was like, oh my God, please don't let this man die.
Don't you dare do anything to George Lopez. Yeah, since he's kind of the guy in the chair, they sit down in Ted Kord's like office, whatever. Coolest neon design. I love the look, just this deep blue everywhere in neon. And they sift through all of his documents and everything, and they find that they're going through their own stuff and realizing that the beetle comes with monkey's paw. That cool, you can get it off of him, but you gotta die. I love that reveal for George Lopez. He's like, cool, no, we can get it off you, you'll just be dead. And so he's kind of wrestling with that, and then while he's wrestling with that, a helicopter flies overhead, and they're like, what the fuck? Where are they going? And they're just like, oh, they're going to the house because they know who he is, they know where it is, the Scarab, and now they're going to go find it. And they assault his adorable, like, lovely home with all of this personality in it. That Jenny just said, your home's great, my home sucks. It's a big, stupid marble skyscraper. I fucking hate it, and I would much rather have your house. Oh no, your house. So they go to the house, and
if you don't like anything about like all the smartphone camera footage we see nowadays of like cops rolling up onto a place that they probably shouldn't be and being hyper violent against a group of people who are objectively unarmed.
Yeah.
That is exactly that. This movie does not shy away from how it feels about not only figures of authority, but especially the police and any sort of institution that is designed to police the community.
Yeah.
Because that's the entire emphasis, is like there's this friction between how the community itself comes together, both as the family as a core unit, and then also their neighbors, versus this soulless, faceless, not just like military force, but also like the fact that the cops are very much on Kord's payroll. Kord, if you pay attention to the background, there's spots throughout it that say like this entire city is like owned by Kord Industries. Everything happening here is because Kord Industry does stuff, which means they're literally paying the police to do whatever they want them to do.
And Ally Bank? Why the fuck did Ally Bank show up? For
I feel like that's the least out of place thing possible. They're not allies. That's why they call themselves Ally Bank. Anyway, but that's the point. Is like the entire sequence is agonizing because people who in almost every other form of media are supposed to be first responders, they're supposed to be there to help, are completely kitted in like beyond military grade equipment. They are without question shooting at unarmed people. And the worst part is when the dad first of all tries to like stop one of the cops from like, I think it was going after the daughter. The cop just hits him.
Just straight in the mouth.
And then he gets into a heart attack. And instead of anyone trying to administer any sort of emergency service, they're like, we literally do not care about these people.
We were about to shoot you a second ago. And the breach seemed like hyper realistic. Like it was, and I had a moment where I'm like, this doesn't feel that cinematic. Like the breach where they're like shooting the hinges on the door, busting it down, and they throw a flashbang, and the flashbang doesn't feel like like, you know, like the cinematic, oh, this is a huge explosion and smoke. It just felt kind of like this is what would happen. Like we're going to film this kind of similarly to how it would happen in real life. And it just like, it sucked. It really sucked to see.
But that's like what I found fascinating about this movie. That's why I feel like this movie is really special and of its time, is because it somehow has found a way to meaningfully examine like if you were a immigrant family who was here illegally and just ICE or someone showed up to your house, you would be cowering in the closet, scared of like this just eldritch, ununderstandable force bearing down upon you. Mixed with the fact that like, look, I got the superpower bazooka and I shoot staples.
And he just straight up shows up with a non-lethal way of dealing with them and kind of like bats them away. It's just like, I'm going to protect my family. I'm going to protect this group in a the most peaceful way possible, I guess, in that circumstance. And
that's the thing, is like it's very of its time. If you told that story a while ago, the police scenes would feel incredibly out of place. If you told that maybe even a bit now, the superhero parts feel completely like, I think that is where the movie is weak, is the fact that the superhero bits almost feel too lighthearted when they're right next to these incredibly serious moments.
So the father fucking dies.
And it's so sad. I was like, and I knew they were gonna bring him back and do all that stuff, but it doesn't make it feel any better in the moment.
But it was handled well. That the grandma, who's just been kind of like fucking around in the background being silly, like takes charge. She's like, there's a time to cry. die, and there's a time to
and there's
take
a time
action.
to die.
Exactly, yeah. As well as Jaime gets stolen. He gets taken away and hooked up to the
not
thing
kidnapped, stolen, because he's not a person, he's property.
God,
That's,
yeah. They basically,
I'm literally saying, like, you are 100% right in saying he is stolen.
Yeah.
Like, Susan Sarandon does not see other people as human beings. She sees them as, at best, assets, and at worst, literal disposable property.
Yeah, and we have kind of a moment of not gesturing at the fact that the billionaires, they're not the final authority.
They're also not heroes.
This one especially, my God, but that they're not the person technically in charge when you think about it. That Sanchez, the linchpin of this entire operation, is like, fuck this. Why would I do this? I'd rather sacrifice myself and save this kid and potentially the world than do anything for this lady that doesn't know my name. And I didn't even say his name. I don't remember his name.
Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of the movie, is trying to say how much the movie itself was trying to say, like, this is what happens when you minimize and erase the people most important to your success.
Yeah. They're downloading the stuff off of Jaime, and they're basically like, well, he'll die. It's like, gotta break a few eggs. Why would I care? Like, it's the kind of thing that in another movie might be like a, oh no moment. But in this movie, it's like, why would she care?
Yeah.
Like I know that Sanchez is like, well, don't do that. He'll die. And she's just like, have you not been paying attention this whole fucking time? Especially how much she's just been throwing bodies at the problem. So showing that she's just like, oh, this is more of a joke. I really don't care. And then we see Conrad, whatever. Carapax, that's it.
I didn't have to look it up this time.
Yes, it's perfect. Wow, I'm very proud of you.
I'm learning. I'm becoming self-aware.
Yeah. That he's just like downloading the stuff, and he's like, I don't care. I'm here to become the perfect soldier. That's my entire mission in life, because I was kind of robbed of my own agency, and that's this whole thing. And so the rest of the family are on their way. They get into the bug. They fly over there, and we see kind of the setup montage of all the cool weapons. And Nana gets a badass Gatling gun.
I have so many opinions about it. Okay, first of all, I would like to start by saying, like, this movie knew exactly what it wanted to say about the immigrant life to the T. Like, if you think about how many Cubans in the United States are probably living in exile of a government they may have at one point tried to fight against, the idea that Nana would be a revolutionary either for or against a socialist movement or whatever. Like, they keep it super ambiguous, but it's very clear she is a of the people, salt of the earth socialist who fought like some Che Guevara-esque battle somewhere.
Down with the imperialists.
They lost, and she is now in hiding. That is not a unique or like out there idea. There are, I assume, countless people in the United States right now who probably could identify with that exactly. And the fact that she's like that age very much implies she is of the like Bay of Pigs era of Americans messing around in Latin America and not letting any sort of either democracy or autocracy that doesn't immediately align with the U.S. mission exist at the expense of the people.
And God, it was so fun to watch her.
She's delightful and perfect. Also, she's like I said, every single person in the movie gets a chance to be funny, serious, and like really loving. And I love the part where she's like, her seriousness is like, yes, my son is dead, but my grandson is in danger. We do not have time to be upset right now. And then after they like save him and everyone's together, it's like, now we can cry. God, and I was like, be still my little heart.
And that brings me to the moment where Jaime is on the brink of death and then sees his father and has this kind of psychedelic trip where he sees all the candles that was like foreshadowed with that like telenovela or whatever that was. It's a very tender moment where they're kind of wrestling with the fact that he's just like, he didn't know his father died. He's just like, well, what are you doing here? And he's just like, it's really sad and heartfelt, and it harkens back to that moment of mindfulness that he had with his son, where he's just like, I'm here for this moment. That's what's important, is that we're all here for each other. We don't need to be building, it's a journey. There is that cool, pie in the sky destination that we all think about, but that's a cool thing to think about. We can get there, but us being here in this journey together is the actual important part.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other point, to your point about the fact that they reference it in that telenovela where it's like implied this is like the underworld or something with all the candles.
Yeah.
It's very much like that is his mind making sense of a traumatic moment by mixing the things from pop culture he knows, the telenovelas and shows that his grandma would watch. Like, they reference this idea of like daytime television being memes in like, oh, look, you're like I don't remember the show they reference. I don't know if it's even a real show. It's basically Pretty Lady. A Pretty Woman.
Oh, yeah,
where it's
yeah.
just like, oh, she's from the barrio and he's going to bring her to the top. Except now you're the lady from the like, they keep doing this bit and how it shapes his worldview.
Yeah.
But then the emphasis, and this is true of many indigenous cultures or just like also Latin American cultures, this sense of like, when people die, they are not gone. They're just not physically there. And the fact that just because my dad is dead doesn't mean that his strength is not with me.
Yeah.
And that's something they like do, I think, an exceptional job of like selling the like, he is gone and Jaime has to come to terms with that. But he's also at peace and he has learned the lessons that his father has instilled in him. And this is like when his dad was saying like, I don't know what my purpose was and now this is my purpose. That is like him giving credence to his dad in the same way that he's trying to find that purpose for himself. And it's just an elegantly done scene, if not a little obvious, I guess. Like, of course, that's like every cliche about like, and then it's a shonen. It's like, and he finds the power and he does the big jutsu and now he is the Blue Beetle.
Yeah. To which there's a part later where he does a big blast and I'm like, was that the Kamehameha?
It's the
Is that
Blue
what's
Beetle no
happening?
jutsu, yeah.
Exactly. And I gotta say, in the Zack Snyder version of this, I had a moment, because I've seen too many of these, like a robot takes over and manipulates a person or an alien does this or that. That the moment when like that happens, I had in the back of my head, I'm like, this isn't going to happen. This isn't going to be part of it. But if you really want to think about the fact that they had just said, oh, the beetle and him are melding, they're like symbiotic now, they're becoming one, that he basically goes in and is about to die, and it feels like, if we had to be like misanthropic about it, that the beetle gives him this entire, like, all of the symbols that he needs to then meld with it. Like, it reads him back this like perfect story and like makes up a simulation for him to do, for him to then feel better and feel more confident. Like, if you were to be, it's not actually, it doesn't seem like the actual message, but if you want to have like a dystopian view of this, is that the Scarab was trying to save its own life, like with Jaime, and so it read him back a story that was perfectly tailored for him to get the stick-to-itiveness together and then break out of the whatever.
I mean, the beetle itself knew the dad died.
Exactly,
you can see on like the little heads-up display when they're in that like heated moment, like it says cardiac arrest on the screen, so it's clear like no help's coming for him and they're trying their best, like he's done. And
now it knows his brain, like it's gotten together and they have this symbiotic relationship.
I think the point that that the beetle later stops him from like killing the Carapax, I think it actually gives credence to let's say it did want to be, in the most disingenuous way, like it is trying to save itself. But it's also very clear that like it is now, it understands its host. It's not just trying to save itself. It's coming from a place of like, it's trying to come from a place of symbiosis and not being parasitic.
Yes, I agree. And of course, that's like the terrible, this is going to be in like a cracked article or whatever. It's just like the horrifying, like actual midpoint of the movie, or like the darkest night for this story. And so he gets it together and then he fights Carapax again in a way that, I gotta say, the finished OMAC like suit looked like Samus Aran's suit from like Metroid Prime. Like, was I the only person that saw that?
It was like a mix of Anthem and like some other video game.
Yeah, right.
It's like like the crazy booster pack. But I was gonna say something I did love about that, to your point about like the suit wanting to become one with him.
Yeah.
The fact that when the body horror for Jaime is like it fusing with him, it is because it's an elegant piece of alien technology. It is growing into him the same way he is growing into himself. But Carapax is like this creature driven by so much hate and so much artificial emotion that when he turns into the full version of the OMEC, it's not like fusing into him. You literally see these like cores ripping out of and then back into his. It's like, it's very like they turned the body horror up a little bit to emphasize like this is not the same kind of elegant, if not horrific, thing that's happening to Jaime. This is a very forced and very painful process to emphasize the kind of horror that will happen if this technology becomes commonplace and people are required to like use it.
And I appreciate that this is one of the few movies where, like, most of the Marvel movies, whenever they say like, oh, this technology can't get into the wrong hands, within like a year or two, I think the bad guy could like reverse engineer or whatever. Somebody could make the bad thing happen. Like, the technology's
That's
out
literally
there.
Iron Man 2.
Yes, exactly. And that's what I mean is that like a lot of these movies, they hand wave away that like the bad guy's plan was 2 steps away from anybody else doing it. This one, there's literally the one person and the one company that has the ability to do this, and that the family goes out of their way to make sure, let's destroy it and all evidence of it, and here's a fucking phone that has the exact stuff to use on it. Let's break it. We're good. Like, I appreciate that they try to like tie up all of those loose ends in a relatively elegant way to show that like here, I just love it. I know that you fucking get on my back about it, but when there's like a deliberate symbol that's like, here is the thing, here's the fucking like symbol of the bad thing, and we broke it. I love it. It's very simple and elegant, and I think they did that pretty well in this. That the end of the movie is like, look at this Matrix style, like that image of like all of the people in the pods in the Matrix, but it's all of the Ermac gross beetles.
Yeah.
And then here's also this fucking phone with the code on it. Let's blow them both up and fucking call it a day. I was very happy about how that kind of just wrapped itself up.
All I could think the whole time though was like, you guys do know that like you're a multi-billion-dollar corporation. You probably have cloud backups, right? Like, there's no way they just put it on the one computer, right?
So yeah, they are about to leave the island, and Susan Sarandon's character is defeated. They destroy the phone. They're like, cool. And Carapax is like, this fucking sucks. I hate you. And they're having their epic battle, and he thinks that Carapax has killed George Lopez. It's so sad. You're like, fuck that. I'm so pissed. How dare you do that to George Lopez? Even if you're gesturing at hurting him, I hate you. And so they're fighting. Takes out a big Buster Sword that, yeah, like in the trailer, I was like, is that Cloud's Buster Sword? It kind of looks like it. It is. It exactly is. Beats the shit out of Carapax in a blind rage, and then the suit, like you said, it stops. It's like, hey, calm the fuck down.
Yeah, we don't kill.
Okay.
We're not killers.
But especially that, like, it had a moment of like, we could kill some people, I guess. But this guy, I saw into his fucking mind's eye. And he's been through some shit. Let's be a little bit empathetic. You, as like a chill 22-year-old guy, can kind of see that this is just another human being, right? And they go through his backstory in a speed racer-ass way. Like, a lot of those cuts felt like a speed racer montage.
Yeah, it's like, Racer X, would you like to go down and talk to the family that is definitely your family?
Actually,
like,
yeah, shit, you're right. It's exactly like that montage.
And that's here's the irony, is they did not make it nearly that big of a deal in the Speed Racer movie. In this one, they used it to completely redeem him at the 11th hour, and it exhausts me.
Yeah.
Because, like, you could have sprinkled any part of this, like if he had spent more time being like, and then maybe with this technology I'll finally unlock my memories, and then like he gets to this point where he unlocks his memories and he's in this blind rage, but like they're still like walled off, and then the machine actually unlocks his memories, and he's like, oh.
Well, and especially he keeps saying is like, your family is your weakness, and it's like, but why though? Like your mom was murdered. Like, why does that make her your weakness? Like, what part of that? And it's not even that like Susan Sarandon's repeating that to him. It just kind of seems like that's something he made up. I don't know. That was one of those elements where I'm like, this is.
I mean, like the real
flimsy.
message was like, mercy is your weakness.
Sure,
that would have been a better thing for him to say, because like the family, that, to your point about like you like it when people just say it, I think that was a little too much. I think that was objectively like a little. It would have been better because like in the beginning of the movie, he could have killed Carapax and it would not have been a threat for the rest of the movie.
Sure.
But he is merciful. He doesn't want to be a killer. And that mercy, that love that he learns from, and empathy he learns from his family and growing up in a stable home, is what sets him apart from Carapax, a guy whose home was destroyed when he was a kid and was forced into being a child soldier and only having the worst kinds of things happen to him. Like that, that is the difference, is that he has mercy from a place of compassion and love, and Carapax does not, because he never had that compassion and love. And that should have been how they framed it.
Yeah. And I'll agree that the main division between the two of them, which would have been more useful to see in like more elegant phrase, is the fact that he was raised by Susan Sarandon as a weapon, and she constantly holds over him, dangles over. He's like, well, you were broken and I fixed you, and you're a big baby and I'm taking care of you, when she's just stringing him along.
Boy. You take your Omek.
Okay. Gross. But yeah, she's like stringing him along and just making him do her bidding by saying like, well, I took care of you, haha, and being like guilt tripping him. Jaime is consistently like, his family gives him nothing but love, like doesn't want to burden him with the fact that the dad had a heart attack and that they're losing the house until it's the appropriate time to be like, yeah, we weren't going to tell you because like you were doing so
Yeah,
well
we
in
want you
school.
to be happy.
Yeah, and that element that they're like looking out for not only his best interest but for his happiness, when the exact opposite is happening with the foil of Carapax. And I think they did a very good job of illustrating that in those elements.
Well,
I still disagree that like the family part, like his your family's your weaknesses.
The difference is like Carapax, whatever Susan Sarandon is mean to Carapax, it is very clear like she's just being a mean asshole.
Yeah.
But like the family teases Jaime, like they don't like just say like we love you all the time. Like they have the moments where they're like teasing each other and having fun and doing the inside jokes to say like they have a relationship. It's not just like some cliched like I love you and we are a family and that is what's important.
Yeah. It's
Familia.
not surface level.
Drink
like,
a Corona.
Yeah, it's like here's this entire history that we have together.
Exactly.
And it's fun. The fucking Carapax blows himself up and takes Susan Sarandon with him to hell, and they leave, and it ends on the note we mentioned in the beginning.
Yeah, so now we can talk about it.
Yeah, where I appreciate that the community came together. That was the moment that I'm like, this is a perfect
They should have
ending.
just ended it there.
Yes, yeah. And at the very least, the only thing that I think would have been fine to add on there is Jenny just being like, we are no longer going to be like encroaching on that territory. It's fine. We don't need to buy out this entire area.
Yeah.
The fact that she's just like, we bought out your house and we're going to be good philanthropists and good billionaires. It's like, we can calm the fuck down
like
about that.
I think the two things I really hated about the ending were one, I'm glad. So there was like this subplot about like I'm a college graduate who can't get a job because I don't have a work experience, even though I have this stupid piece of paper I'm supposed to have to get work experience.
Yeah.
So I'm glad they didn't end it with giving him a job.
Yeah.
Unless you really want to like stretch to the idea that like now his job is being a superhero on behalf of Cord Industries.
Yeah.
But then the other thing is, I think something that would have actually helped is like if the point is this dichotomy between family and like this cold capitalist industry, I think what would have been more interesting is if someone in his family was like trying to run for like Palmero like city council or something. Like they wanted to like bring about some sort of political change, and the fact that Cord Industry, for whatever reason, they want to do something shitty and have their own guy come in. So like it would allow the ending to be more of like, instead of the mean billionaire was replaced with a nice billionaire, it was like something happened that allowed for like social change or like a step towards social change that wasn't realized while the mean billionaire was like actively spending all of their money and resources to screw over the people who want to do a nice thing.
And similarly, like I think a similar thing might have been that if they had like an evil sciencey person and then George Lopez comes in and replaces them as like the cool sciencey person that is more I'd say politically active.
Yeah, like the problem isn't solved, it's different. Oh my god, like I could do, if you want, we can just spend the rest of the time talking about how based George Lopez's character is the entire time, because he's probably my like favorite and least favorite. He's a complex in that he is like, he knows what he likes. He wants his fancy car and wants to do all this stupid mechanic shit because like he and his brother run the auto shop or used to. But at the same time, like he is very socially active. It's very clear that probably a lot of that came from his mom, the grandma, because of how she's like, do not call the police.
Yeah.
They're spying on you.
Yeah.
They're probably spying on, like this is not like a person who's like tinfoil hat, like they're spying on us.
Yeah.
Or like he's like clearly a guy who's like researched like this is how they spy on you. We live in a city that's implied that there's a mass surveillance system that Cord has because that's how they find their families.
It's so refreshing to me that that we're getting back into the fact that DC just has other places. They technically exist like kind of in our world as like a different area, but like the fact that we can have an entirely different city that can have this different idea. That's what stories are about. You tell a fable about a different place that's similar to ours that we can then imprint a bunch of stuff on. And for George Lopez to go out of his way to be like, yeah, they are spying on us, and that Batman's a fascist, and all of these other elements.
That was amazing.
So fucking good.
But
that's what I mean is it's a different place with similar symbols and stuff, but it's meant to pull at our world in a way that, like I said, during the trailer, everything that he says is like, oh, this is kind of a funny joke. During the movie, most of it's played for, like, the fascist thing is played for a laugh. But like, yeah, don't use the phone. Don't use the phone.
There's a literal threat at the other end of this because like when the cops show up, he's right. But they never play him for a fool. Every single time he says something, he is right.
Yeah, like when he has his silly gizmo thingamabob where he's gonna like jam all of the cameras, he does it. He knows what the fuck he's doing. He can be a little goofy about it, and that's the fun part, but it's never played that he's incompetent.
Yeah.
Like he knows how to fly the fucking bug just cause he's smart enough and can hack into the system, and he like even looked at Ted Kord's stuff and he's like, so I looked at all the research and within the past 20 minutes I found that you're gonna fucking die. Like he's smart, and him being a silly guy doesn't detract from that, and I appreciate that they worked that in there and that he wasn't played as a fool, like you said.
Yeah, and I would say another thing that I really liked about not just his character but like his dynamic with all the characters is the fact that like he is zany and out there, and his family is never like mean to him about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like he has his own opinions about like the kind of person he was supposed to be or should have been to like make his family feel proud of him. And like Jaime like reassures him, was like, yeah, but we love you. Like you don't have to be someone else for us to love you. You can be whoever you want and we'll still love you. Yeah. And like they never use anything about his wackiness to undermine how the family feels about him.
It's nice. It's very wholesome in that way, and I feel like it's the kind of movie that we don't get too much from this superhero stuff because like I said in our like way back with the Multiverse of Madness, that every one of these movies in the Marvel universe have to juggle the fact that they're part of a bigger universe. They can't just be their own self-contained thing, and that this one can be. And it's just like, this is just about family, and this is just about the acceptance of your family and having a good support system around you, and that's far more important than having a gajillion dollars. You probably should have, like, it'd be nice to have enough money to fucking live, but it's more important for everybody to feel supported emotionally and mentally.
Yeah, I hope, first of all, that the writer's strike is successful and everyone gets all the money they're due.
Yes.
Dune,
yes.
I want Dune.
Please.
I want Dune to be as postponed as it needs to be. I don't care.
Only if it comes out on his birthday in the next years.
Yeah, whatever. Yes. I want Dune and all of the projects I'm so excited for to be postponed, because I would be like, this movie highlights the power of having writers and like storytellers who care about the craft.
Yeah.
Having like something to say about like all the stakes in the movie are very personal. It's not the point is not to get the job. The point is the job will help them keep the house, which represents the family being together. Yeah. And that's a really well told story. The same way that in Mutant Mayhem was a story of like acceptance, or Spider-Man was the story Across the Spider-Verse, the story of belonging, or like every good movie we see is not good because there's the big explosion. Like the Blue Beetle is not a good movie because it's a superhero origin story. A superhero origin story is basically at this point a genre.
Yeah.
The question is, what is it trying to tell that's different and unique and interesting? And I think it completely succeeds on almost all of those things.
I agree. And I'm glad that we're getting to the point where we've seen enough of these origin stories, or seen enough superhero movies. That's like, well, what does this have to say? Like, what does this even have to do with the broader dialogue of like what we all deal with? These are all meant to pull at something within us. And I think that they did a pretty good job with Blue Beetle. And speaking about the storytelling, I mean, I'm not particularly well educated about this thing, so I mean, take it with a grain of salt. But I did appreciate that this movie had an element of, I wouldn't call Jaime a passive protagonist, but there were elements of him dealing with the world as it came, and how fucking terrible it just kept treating him. And that we don't get that too much from movies. Like, everybody has to be an active protagonist, and if they are a passive protagonist, it's in a way that's more frustrating. So like, why aren't they making any decisions? But this one felt very refreshing in a way that I think everybody can kind of empathize with in the post-COVID world, where it's like, every time I turn on the news, anytime I hear about anything, anytime I open up fucking Bill, it's just consistently like wearing me down, and it's frustrating. And it's showing that I think it's empathetic with Jaime that he's just constantly being fed this bad news. But he's still like, okay, well, I can deal with it. I have my family. They're going to help me out with it, as well as I can get through it. I myself can persevere and do it. And being able to do that instead of having your heroic journey where a guy needs to go find a MacGuffin and bring it back and blah, 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 and all of this specific stuff about them. It's more about him and his community.
Exactly. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, this movie is very of its time. The point isn't that Jaime is powerful because he has the Blue Beetle. The point is that Jaime finds his power because he has his family. Yeah. He moves back to Palmyra because he wants to be near his family. He could, if he's going to law school, could have kept going to law school and gotten his law degree and done all the things he would have done. But instead, he wanted to be with his family. He wanted to take that time off. And that's, like, I think all of us can relate. If you were fortunate enough to have a family, that you don't have to love your family. You don't have to think they're the best people in the world. I sure as heck don't. But if I didn't have you, if I didn't have, like, my support group, I don't know where I'd be. And I'm glad to see
I'm trash. I get it. I appreciate it.
You're my trash.
But I agree.
But that's my point, though, is like, it's just like, I want more of the messages where it's like, and that's the thing, is like, we've seen lots of them there about found family. It's like, you don't have to like your literal biological family. Sure. But at the same time, your family doesn't have to be a well-off power base for you. They can just be a place of support that helps you do that. Like, the point isn't that Jaime toughens up and uses his own bootstraps to overcome the villain. It's like, his family is working with him. Yeah. Both physically and as the support base, and I think they nailed that, and I think that's the most important thing they needed to nail for this movie.
And the amount of shirts and clothes that they give him after his transformation is like, we got you, pal. Yeah. This is good. You're naked and please cover up. It's great. And the final reference that I saw was at the very end of the movie. He flies off with his girl, maybe not girlfriend, I don't know, friend that is a girl, and they kissed once. In exactly the same way that Neo does at the end of the first Matrix movie. If they weren't drawing comparisons to Speed Racer, which they better have, because my fucking god, they were at least drawing comparisons to The Matrix and another Wachowski's project. So, on that note, the one other thing that happened was the end credits thing, mid-credits scene. Yeah. James Gunn, I think that this is a series worth saving. Like, put it in your back pocket. It really wasn't bad. Keep the same guy, the same actor.
Oh my god, yes. Keep all the same actors. The entire cast, I think, was phenomenal.
Yeah. You don't need to do that thing at the end where they're just like, oh, the dad. Oh, he's alive. Oh, wow. Like, I don't think anybody's clamoring for that. But please keep this series around, because this movie in particular was the first time I think I watched a DC movie where they show, like, here's a city, and here's this hero, and here's how he fits into that city and is representative of it and needs to be around for it. And I think that this is the kind of movie or the kind of series that we don't see from the MCU at all, and especially not the DCEU, whatever it is now. So I'm glad that they have this, and that it's the first step in the right direction, finally, in my opinion.
15 years, but they got there eventually. I would actually add that I use Speed Racer to predict the Fast and Furious. I think I have a prediction for what's going to happen with the dad.
Please go
I think in the next, or the movie after, the dad went to find the creators of the Blue Beetle. Okay. Finds out that they're conquerors. At the same time that Jaime's Blue Beetle starts acting up and making him a conqueror. So when the dad comes back, he's going to know enough about the Blue Beetle to help Jaime break the code and get control over the Blue Beetle back to like this kind of like symbiosis that they have in this movie. Okay. And if I'm right, some sort of award. You have to subscribe.
Yes, please.
Like, no, you have to subscribe.
The one other element that I might throw in there is that while he's out finding them, he might find those cool Green Lanterns. Because apparently they have a project coming up.
And Ryan Reynolds will be there, and he'll be like, not me, not this time. Nuh-uh.
Yeah, he's like, please, let me die. Yeah, let Hal Jordan like this die. So yeah, that was Blue Beetle. Those Blues Brothers and the Beatles put together. It was good. I hope you enjoy. Go see it if you can, because I can't believe how sold out it was. Yeah. Like, literally, there's 3 of us. We just needed 3 seats. Yeah. In any theater. Here's a picture again. Nothing. Not even an IMAX. What the fuck? So go see it if you can. If not, hopefully it'll be out on HBO Max soon or not. Who cares? This has been Keon and Cameron.
It's beetling time.
Yeah, I loved when he said it's beetling time. They beetled everywhere.
He blues everywhere.
Gross.